for Super Bowl 59. The NFL season is about to come to an end, and we got the final two teams in the NFL standing as they look to face each other in Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans this Sunday. It's a rematch of 2 years ago. The Philadelphia Eagles, the NFC champions, take on the AFC champions Kansas City Chiefs, who are back in the Super Bowl for the third straight time and the fourth time in the last 5 years. The Chiefs have just been going on an incredible run, and here they are once again in a game that many people were honestly disappointed that this was the Super Bowl matchup. The Eagles and the Chiefs, a rematch of 2 years ago. I think both, generally, the country doesn't really like both teams. The Chiefs, of course, are quite hated right now. They're winning too much. People hate when one team wins a lot, and the Eagles, of course, are just generally a hated team in the league. And another rematch of these two, but if you exclude the matchup and saying, oh, it's the same matchup, it's boring, I don't like this. If you look at the matchup and how the game's going to go, it is actually going to be a really good game. I think this is going to be a great Super Bowl to watch. It's actually going to be really good, whether you don't like these teams or not. The matchup and the game itself, I think, is going to be really, really interesting, and I'm excited to see it. Whether you like the Chiefs or you don't, obviously they've generally the calls have gone in their favor. Of course, we know that, but that's what happened during Tom Brady's era. It's now Patrick Mahomes' time. And the Eagles here, it's going to be a great game. Their defense versus Patrick Mahomes, and then how the Chiefs can stop Saquon Barkley. So it's going to be a great game. And the Chiefs beat the Bills 32-29 to reach here in the AFC Championship. And the Eagles absolutely dominated the Commanders 55-23. And the Chiefs, of course, won this matchup 2 years ago, 38-35, where Butker ended up kicking what came up to be the game-winning field goal. These are the major storylines for the Super Bowl. What I think, obviously, the number one defense and what I think is the best overall team in the NFL, the Eagles, stacked team all around, taking on, the back-to-back champions, the team that has been able to do it in these big games. Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Chris Jones, Kelsey, these big names. They've been able to get it done time and time again, but we're going to see how that matchup is going to be. Of course, the rematch of 2 years ago, which was a great game. If you don't remember what happened, that was a back and forth game. Chiefs were down 24-14 at the halftime. We had a fumble recovery for a touchdown by Nick Bolton and the Chiefs defense. Mahomes woke up in the second half, made a bunch of plays, even with an injured leg, and the Chiefs were able to find a way and got it done. Of course, a great punt return by Kadarius Toney set the Chiefs to take the lead. That was a great game. And, of course, if the Chiefs win, it's going to be the first three-peat in NFL history. That's never happened in the NFL. That, of course, has happened in the NBA with Michael Jordan, the WNBA with the Houston Comets. I think it's happened in baseball as well. So, never happened in the NFL. So that would be quite an achievement if it does happen for Kansas City, no matter how you feel about them. And now we're just going to go through and talk about the star players, of course, on both sides. I think we've got to start with the quarterbacks, of course. Jalen Hurts out of the Houston area on Channelview. Second Super Bowl for him in 3 years. He's back here. He's done a solid job with this team. He's been playing some smart football. Running the football has been great for him, of course. Had a concussion, but he's good to go now. And he's been doing some great stuff this season as well, making all those smart plays in general and not allowing his team to lose. Not really any huge flashy numbers for him this year. And the same thing would be for Patrick Mahomes as well. Didn't have a great regular season at all, threw a lot of interceptions. But the thing is, he hasn't thrown an interception since mid-November against the Bills. He's thrown 13 touchdowns, 0 picks, and the Chiefs have won every single game that he has started in. So in that stretch, the only one loss was to Buffalo. So, they're on a roll, and he's been able to run the ball. He can run as well. I think that's something that people forget. Patrick Mahomes is a lot quicker and faster in the open field when he runs than people think. So now that he's healthy, he doesn't have that issue that he did 2 years ago. He's going to need that against a fast Eagles defense. We know playoff Mahomes is different. He generally steps it up in the playoffs. Already 17 playoff wins, I believe, in his career, which is ridiculous to think about. And only 3 losses, I think, 2 to Tom Brady. And it's just been an amazing run for him. 7 straight AFC championships. That's all he knows. So you can't underestimate Patrick Mahomes as much as you're like, oh, they always talk about Mahomes. Yeah, we're sick of hearing about Mahomes. Well, he is that good. And obviously there's certain people who take it to an extreme level with Mahomes. But the fact is he's a great player, and he's won the all-time already. And this is who it is. And then the Eagles, we took a look at their offensive playmakers. Barkley, of course, just won the Offensive Player of the Year at the NFL Honors to over 2,000 yards of rushing, and which he could have set, the most yards all time, beating Eric Dickerson, but he chose not to play in that final game, resting out, and he's ultimately carried this Eagles offense. And then, of course, Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown both having subpar number seasons. Devontae struggled with a couple of injuries this year, but both have had, the numbers are not too flashy, but they've been able to get it done when they need to, scoring touchdowns and making plays, and that's what the Eagle offense has been around Saquon Barkley this year. And then the Chiefs offense got a bunch of different guys this year. No Rashee Rice, torn his ACL, so that's a big loss for Kansas City. You get Pacheco back, who's been working it out these last few games. He's ready to go. Kareem Hunt is back with Kansas City. He's been a great running back for them this year, physical. And then in wide receiver, DeAndre Hopkins making his first Super Bowl. Texans fan loves to see that. And Hollywood Brown, first year for the Chiefs. He's ready to go as well in this one. And you can't forget about the rookie Xavier Worthy, who's been great. Obviously Kelsey, we know what he brings to the table. And Noah Gray's been great as a backup tight end. The Chiefs have plenty of weapons, but obviously not a true number one type guy. Kelsey's been good, but he's not obviously what he used to be. Still a good player, and one of the best tight ends in the NFL. And when you look at the defenses of both teams, secondary-wise, Chiefs secondary is a little bit weaker. No L'Jarius Sneed. Justin Reed is good. Trent McDuffie has not been as good this year. They're a little weaker back there, but they don't really make huge mistakes, I guess you can say. But on the other hand, the Eagles, Darius Slay, of course, leading this young group. With Cooper DeJean, Kenyon Mitchell, they're a great rookie cornerback duo. They're solid secondary in Philly, so definitely look out for them. And then linebackers-wise, Zach Bond, story of the Eagles this year, one of the best linebackers and All-Pro this year. He's been great first year in Philly. He's turned his career around with them, and he's a player to watch out for Philly. They have a great linebacking core, Nolan Smith. I believe Nakobe Dean is hurt, but, they've got some real talent on this team. And then we know what Nick Bolton did in the Super Bowl 2 years ago against Philly with that fumble recovery for a touchdown. He's the head of this defense. And then defensive line-wise, Chris Jones, we know what he brings to the table. One of the great players for Kansas City, steps up when he needs to. In the playoffs, signed a big contract over the offseason. We know what kind of plays he makes. And then, of course, for Philly, who in the news have been suffering from some illnesses. So that's something to keep an eye out on. Jalen Carter is one of them, one of the best players on the defensive line for Philly. And Brandon Graham, of course, back in the Super Bowl for Philly. They have a great defensive line. So we'll see if they're okay in this game. And now we're going to go to kind of the head-to-head matchups, who has the advantage. As for the defense overall, Philly, of course, better defensive line, linebackers, corners, safety, everything is better with them. But defensively, the X factor, and that's what you can't really put on, paper, and that's Steve Spagnuolo and the kind of play calling that he brings and the kind of experience that the Chiefs have in these big games. The way that they show up, we know what they can do, and that's really the X factor that Kansas City brings. And of course, their special teams go with Butker over Jake Elliott, and of course, coaching, got to go with Andy Reid over Nick Sirianni. And as for the overall offense, would go with the Chiefs for the overall offense. X factor, of course, is Patrick Mahomes. Quarterback as well goes advantage to the Chiefs. Tight end, of course, is Kelsey. But the rest of the running back is Barkley. He's way better. Wide receivers to the Eagles. Offensive line to the Eagles as well. They are great over there in the offensive line. So when you look at the head-to-head, it's literally tied up at 8-8. So as close as it gets in the head-to-head matchups. And now We're going to be going over to the keys to the game for both teams, keys to the game for the Chiefs. Of course, try and get a turnover. That's what happened 2 years ago in the Super Bowl. They got a huge one on Jalen Hurts that ultimately changed the game and tied it up at 14 by Nick Bolton. So they need something like that, interception, fumble, whatever. And then, of course, I think what the biggest one is, you have to limit Saquon Barkley. You can't stop him, of course. You know, he's run for 200 yards, multiple huge touchdowns. You have to try and limit him to maybe 100 yards and a touchdown. If he goes up to anything close to 200, multiple touchdowns, you're not going to win this game. So just around 100 and a touchdown, I think the Chiefs would be happy with that. And then you have to give Mahomes time to make some plays. If you give him time, he'll make something happen. Whether that's with his legs, his arm, he'll do something. But you just got to give him a few moments to make a play. And then for the Eagles, you have to dominate the running game and time possession with Saquon. You got to use him. Best running back in the league. You got to use him. He's what got you here. And that's how you can beat the Chiefs. So time possession and use that offensive line and running game to dominate. And you can't turn the ball over. That's what hurt them last time. And you got to force something on defense. Maybe an interception, something on defense. And then I think overall you got to be smart defensively. We know that the Chiefs are going to get calls if it is anywhere suspicious, whether that's a slight roughing the passer or anything questionable. So they've got to be smart defensively if you're Philly. And now it's time for my Super Bowl 59 prediction. Here we go. I have the Chiefs winning it by 2, 28-26, just by 2 points. I think the Chiefs just get over the hump at the end, and the Eagles are not able to get it done at the very end. I think the Chiefs find a way, and they hold on to the lead. And I think the Eagles make it close late, but they're not able to get their possession again when they need to at the very end of the game. I think Barkley has a solid game. I think Jalen Hurts has a turnover in this one. Mahomes may have a turnover in this. But I think they're able to score touchdowns in the red zone with some really great play calling by the Chiefs coaches. And I think Mahomes obviously will make some plays, of course. I think Hopkins definitely shows up in his first Super Bowl, and I think the Chiefs win it in New Orleans and get the three-peat, first ever three-peat, and the Eagles come on the losing side again. Versus the Chiefs, Chiefs are the favorites, but wouldn't be surprised again if the Eagles win. They have a great team. They could definitely beat Kansas City this time around, but I can't pick against Mahomes, and I think he gets it done. So, hope you guys enjoyed. Hit the like, subscribe, comment who you think is going to win the Super Bowl, and I will see you in the next one.